5 laps of this one, and a great start from Paul Buckmaster as he goes through on the inside of his brother and up towards Talladega. So 5 laps for the retros around here, no joker. It's a great start, as we always expect from Dan Swayland, and away he goes, chomping up the ground ahead of him as he takes the lead, and over the jump for the very first time of 5. Over the jump following suit comes Paul Buckmaster, then it is Joe Luke Eastwood, followed by Rob Buckmaster in the Fiesta. And then behind it is Simon Hart, and then scampering up the hill, trailing them all, but giving it his all. It's Ian Halfhide, around they go and off. Oh, Simon Hart goes very wide and manages to lose the car through a full 360, gathers it up, and he's going to be able to get going again. He's going to have to go all the way around Ian Halfhide as over the line goes Dan Swayland for the first lap, completing that one. Dan Swayland leads. Paul Buckmaster second, Joe Luke Eastwood in third, fourth place to Rob Buckmaster. Ian Halfhide. Simon Hart complete the order as Swayland, well, he's got such a big lead. What's it, 3.5 seconds up the road now as the 2, 3 and 4 squabble between them. But the head of the field of those 2, 3, 4 is Paul Buckmaster, with his brother Rob sandwiching Joe Luke Eastwood. And you could see whether or not they're working together. Is Paul Buckmaster just trying to force it so Joe Luke Eastwood falls into the hands of his brother Rob? Would that sort of thing be happening? But it certainly could. As Dan Swayland goes through again and increases his lead over the line, here comes Paul Buckmaster, and he goes across. The gap was 3.5. The gap is now 7.2 seconds. Can you believe that? The 7.2 seconds is 2 laps down. Dan Swayland leaps over the jump and towards the Devil's Elbow, and behind we have a change of position. Joe Luke Eastwood has moved his way up into second place around Talladega, followed by Rob Buckmaster, and Paul Buckmaster is now down in 4th place. So a proper swap around just there, a switcheroo, as off the track goes Joe Luke Eastwood, and he's probably going to have to concede that position as up the hill. It's a drag race up the hill. Rob Buckmaster is on the outside of Joe Luke Eastwood. He can't quite get it done. Joe Luke Eastwood forces the issue, forces him back into the arms of his brother as down the hill they go, and over the line goes Dan Swayland. Completed 3 laps, Dan Swayland. The gap is massive between first and second, but the gap between second, third and fourth is absolutely nothing. Across they go. Joe Luke Eastwood, 12.257 seconds back off the race lead. Dan Swayland going up to the elbow right now. So we have a look towards the Talladega corner and up to the jump, but it is Joe Luke Eastwood ahead of Rob Buckmaster. The gap is very little, of half a second or so towards the elbow, and a lot more pace carried in there by Buckmaster as they go into the elbow. And back on the power goes Joe Luke Eastwood. But it's going to be a drag race up to the hairpin now. On the outside is Rob Buckmaster, and dropping back is Paul Buckmaster. Doesn't have the legs, does he, this time? As around the hairpin they go. Dan Swayland crossing the start-finish line. There's a huge margin when you think of this 1 mile circuit here at Lydden Hill. Dan Swayland starts lap number 5, his final lap of the race. As over the line now comes Joe Luke Eastwood, and he's got Rob Buckmaster in his mirrors looming large. There's our race leader Dan Swayland. I'll take a quick glimpse out to these two you're looking at right now, and it's a brilliant drive in that little MG Metro for Joe Luke Eastwood. A fantastic performance from him. Dan Swayland has almost completed this one. Simon Hart stopped out on the left-hand side. There comes Dan Swayland down the hill for the final time as the fight continues between Joe Luke Eastwood and Rob Buckmaster. Dan Swayland's going to take this one across the line. He does, to take the victory in the second round. But at the top end, the battle continues. Joe Luke Eastwood leads ahead of Rob Buckmaster. There's nothing between them. And round the final bend he comes, round Paddock Bend. He's got this one, he's got the measure. Joe Luke Eastwood, what a performance. New to the category and second in the second round of the season there. What a performance from Joe Luke Eastwood. Managing to hold off the fight from Rob Buckmaster. Huge amount of experience, Rob Buckmaster, in this category, and over the line goes Ian Halfhide. Great to see him out in that Peugeot 205. Dan Swayland took the win. Joe Luke Eastwood in second, Rob Buckmaster in third, Paul Buckmaster fourth, fifth Ian Harpide, and a DNF for Simon Hart, who stopped out there just away from us on the other side of the jump. A fantastic performance from Dan Swayland, 17.7 seconds up on the squabbling Joe Luke Eastwood and Rob Buckmaster. It was fair, it was frantic, it was fun. There you go. You have the results for Retro